Hi, I'm Michael Hartman.
I'm Naomi Liu.
And I'm Mike Rizzo. And this is OpsCast,
a podcast for marketing ops pros
and RevOps pros.
Created by the Mo Pros, the #1 community for marketing operations professionals.
Tune in to each episode as we chat with real professionals to help elevate you in your marketing operations career.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of OpsCast brought to you by the Mo Pros. I'm Michael Hartman, joined today by co-hosts Naomi Liu and Mike Rizzo. And normally I would ask you to say hello, but do we really need to do that today?
I don't think so.
No, we're good.
I don't think so.
We're good.
All right. Well, let's get right into this. Today we've got a special guest. We've got Amy Goldfine. As Amy says
Hello.
by day, she is head of marketing operations at Iterable, the customer activation platform that helps brands deliver joyful experiences with harmonized, individualized, and dynamic communications at scale. I feel like that we should be getting, some sort of sponsorship money for this. I don't know.
Right? That was a great read. That's awesome.
By
The
night,
brand team
Amy.
thanks you.
Yeah. By night, Amy is the founder of marketingopsadvice.com, a site for Mo Pros to get actionable advice on both technical and strategic topics. Her motto is more ops, less oops. I had to read that twice to make sure I got it right. And Amy is also a Marketo Certified Expert and 4-time Marketo Champion. Amy, I know you already said it, but thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to talk to y'all.
This is going to be fun. So when you and I first talked about you joining as a guest, you had recently just started the blog for Mo Pros. Why don't we start with just like what was the initiation behind that? What led you to starting the blog and kind of how is it going so far?
Yeah, I really love helping other Mo Pros. I spend a lot of time in the Mo Pro community. I'm a moderator on the Marketing Nation boards. I'm a Marketo Champion, and part of that is a lot of like advocacy and helping people. I run the San Francisco Marketo user group, and there kept being these themes that were coming up over and over, and I found myself like typing out the same responses or kind of looking for articles that would help people, and there was just things where I felt like there were gaps. And then there was also things where I just felt like I had found these cool ways of doing things or things that were really important that I just like wanted to get out in the world because I wanted to people know like how to find errors in Marketo or, how to, pull in RSS feeds of all your status notifications, into Slack so you can kind of know what's going on with all your tech. So, I've written a lot for, the Marketo blog. I've given a lot of presentations, but I decided I wanted to own something of my own and, have something that I could really control. And so marketingopsadvice.com was born.
That's a clutch domain too, by the way. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
I think prior to the call, we were suggesting that there's probably a number of us in the community that are like domain hoarders.
Yeah.
You come up with a good one, you're like, oh, I wonder if that's available. And then you snag it for like $12 or whatever.
Yeah, I bought a couple. My hover bill is kind of insane, but it's worth it.
That's awesome.
So funny. That's great. So how long has the blog been live now?
Just maybe like 2 months, 2 months. It really started with this, me really wanting to talk about the 4 pillars of marketing operations. And I really want to write this article called, WTF is marketing operations. I was just, felt like this was a concept that I really wanted the world to understand. It's been so helpful. It's really been like life-changing to my career. And there's not a ton of content on it and not a ton of content in the way that I feel like it should be presented. So I was like, I'm going to write this. I'm going to write this for myself. I'm going to share it with the world and hopefully it'll help people.
Yeah. So that's one of the things we wanted to talk about is that specific post. Was that I think that was the first post for your blog, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I love the PG name, title of it. Yeah. So, all right. So for the folks who haven't already read your blog, because I'm sure it's circulating, throughout the community, can you mentioned the 4 pillars, so maybe not everybody knows what that is. Why don't you talk to us what those are?
Absolutely. So I did not create the 4 pillars of marketing ops. I give so much credit to Edward Unthank, who runs the consultancy at Tumos, and they run the MopsCon virtual conference. And in 2019, his keynote was the state of marketing operations, and he introduced this concept of the 4 pillars of marketing ops. And it just was like mind blowing. And it really helped me realize why I was unhappy in my job and what I really wanted to get out of my job. And what the 4 pillars does is explains what marketing operations is, because marketing ops is not one thing. And it kind of allows you to understand what the different functions are, how to build your team, how to get what you want out of your career. So the first pillar is platform ops. And this is really like running the engine of marketing ops, from both a technical and a strategic perspective. And I should say that all of these pillars, there's technical and strategic pieces to it. I think we often think about the execution, but there's so much strategy behind it as well. So this is adminning your tools, implementing migration, architecture, governance, naming conventions and taxonomy. If you're a Marketo user, these is your operational programs in your admin panel. So scoring, lifecycle, integrations, all that kind of stuff. This is actually like what I really love, both from a technical and a strategic perspective. I love platform ops. It's really like, where my heart lies. I think it's probably like one of the ones that people don't see as much and the one like doesn't get as much love. But if you don't start with this pillar, you can't do the other ones. Pillar 2 is campaign ops. And this is really the implementation of your marketing programs in your MarTech tools. So this is probably the most visible. This is actually what people think marketing ops is, right? This is sending emails.
They do emails over there in that group.
Yes. Yeah. They do webinars, right? All that stuff's really important. You cannot do it if you don't have a good foundation of platform ops, and you can't do it well without a good strategy. But it's everything from any templates. So obviously my bias is from Marketo. So Marketo has program templates, which are like really the foundation of scaling your campaign ops, but this is really platform agnostic. So setting up your webinar in your marketing automation platform and your webinar tool, building the invites and operational emails, syncing it to your CRM, tracking registration attendance, posting the recording for on-demand viewing, all of that like technical part of getting your marketing out in the world is campaign ops. And honestly, I'd love to hear your perspective. I think if you're a small team, this may be actually like, or if you're one person or you're even like not a full-time marketing ops person, this is probably primarily what you're doing. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would even go so far, especially if you're like a team of one or two.
Yeah.
Like when you're expected to be both tactical and strategic, right? That this will eat up 90% of your time. And so the strategy is what suffers. Or, longer term kind of big vision things. So totally agree with that.
Yeah. And, campaign ops can be centralized or decentralized. I don't want to go too far into that because that could be an entire separate conversation.
I think we actually have some episodes already on that particular topic.
Yeah.
So.
It's a hot topic. I have I have emotions about it, but just briefly, centralized is when you have a single person or a team executing. So they take requests and they're, real specialists in the tools. Decentralized is when the marketers who own the campaigns also own the campaign execution. But in that case, you need somebody to train them and you need somebody to help them when they mess up. You need someone to help them when they have questions. It does not take the entire burden off of marketing ops. The third pillar is marketing intelligence ops. That's actually the term I like the least. It's a little awkward because most people just call it analytics or BI. Right. But, we like to keep ops in all of them. But this is your reporting, right? This is obviously really important. If you're a smaller team, you're probably not doing, or a younger, a less mature company, probably not doing a ton of this, but you're probably doing even basic stuff. Even let's use the webinar example, how many people attended your webinars? That's marketing intelligence, right? And depending upon your company's maturity, your team structure, marketing ops may own this. BI may own this. There may be a partnership. You may have marketers who are stronger or less strong. It kind of depends. But no matter what, marketing ops needs to be involved. They really understand the data. They can help, the marketers with their reporting. Actually, we have a whole initiative right now to train our marketers to be better at Salesforce so that they can run a lot of the reporting themselves. And then we're also working with our BI team on...
Sorry, I had this shiver in my back from that statement. Right?
Tell me more.
You think you're going to have the marketers look, I work with a lot of great marketers, but like just getting your head around the concepts of objects in Salesforce is, I think,
it's hard.
Half the battle.
And I think a lot of it is going to be like building templates for them, but, just so they can, for example, Activate, which is our conference series, like when we had Activate Virtual, I ran so many reports and it was just the same data sliced and diced a bunch of different ways, looking at accounts, looking at contacts, looking at, by region and by market segment and, persona and all this stuff. And like afterwards, I was talking to our head of customer and partner marketing, and she was like, no, my team should own that. Like you should give them the base report and then we need to teach them how to manipulate it themselves, that kind of stuff.
Can
I
make a really bad dad joke?
Absolutely. I love dad jokes.
Dad jokes, totally rad.
I was like thinking about marketing intelligence ops or MyOps as they'll say. And I was like, you know what? MyOps is not myopic.
I love it. That's great.
We needed. I should have been ready with the sound effect. Like,
yeah, you should have.
Right?
Yeah.
Naomi. So the folks who are listening can't see Naomi right now. Naomi's just like shaking her head.
She's like,
I can't tell if she's laughing or crying.
Good thing I was on mute, right?
Yeah. So funny.
But I think no matter what your team is, it's really important for marketing ops to be involved in this. Like, we have a very sophisticated BI team run by some really smart people, but they don't necessarily understand the data. They don't know what assumptions to make or really how to they really need us to validate and to sort of be the conduit between the marketing team and the BI team. And the last pillar is one that I think is the most fun. It's also the one that I am definitely the least skilled in, and that is development operations or DevMops. And this is custom coding in your marketing tools. So everything from custom web development, scripting, non-native integrations, process automation, webhooks. I mean, the sky's the limit. All these tools have really great APIs. You can do a lot of great stuff. This is definitely something that unless your team is pretty big, you will probably outsource. So we have an agency that has a great dev team and like we need their help with some web scripting, or we had them build a web-based naming convention generator, which is really cool. So, especially with a decentralized team, for them to be able to, use a naming convention, they just, pick fields, from a drop down and it spits out a name and a description for them. So, I love DevMops. I love that there are people that I can hire for specific projects and not have to have somebody, full time. But yeah, that's the 4 pillars.
Yeah. So I had heard of the 4 pillars a while back and never really dug into it, probably until you and I talked when you put your blog post. But yeah, I could see how it could be used. Just before we go further, so Amy, so in that vein, I think I do like the concept of how this is applied, or the concept. How do you suggest people apply it? And I think I'm thinking of at least 2 scenarios, because you mentioned tactical versus strategic, and so I'm thinking like general sort of marketing ops use of the model and leadership use of the model.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a reason I give the subtitle of my my post is why nobody fully understands your job, and neither do you. Because I think it's so helpful for MoPros. If you are looking for a job and you look at 10 different job descriptions, you will see 10 very different roles. I have seen roles called marketing ops that are not marketing ops. I've seen email marketing jobs called marketing ops. I've seen project management jobs called marketing ops. And I swear that having these 4 pillars and understanding them, it's like you have a secret code. It's like, when you're a kid, you get that like spy kit and there's like the decoder thing and you put the clear sheet like over and all of a sudden like shows what's behind. Sorry, I'm really bad at metaphors, but we're just going to go with it.
No, this is a really good one.
Okay, thank you.
I was like sitting here like, oh yeah, I totally remember that.
I don't know what you call it. It's not a decoder ring, but anyway, it really like gives you a map. And after I watched this MopsCon keynote, which is available on YouTube, I always recommend people watch it. One of the reasons I wrote the article is most people don't have like 45 minutes or an hour to watch the whole thing. But it's great. But I was like, oh, I looked at job descriptions and I suddenly understood, oh, you know what? They really want somebody with dev experience. I don't have that. This is all campaign ops. I don't want to do that. This is a little more marketing intelligence that I really want to do. It really like helped me, pick and choose the job descriptions that I wanted. It also helped me have like really intelligent conversations with hiring managers and recruiters. I think in every interview, and this is back when we had in-person interviews, I think I drew out the pillars on the whiteboard every single time. So I think that really helps. It helped me understand why I was unhappy at my job. I was in a great job. I was managing a direct report. I was at a company that's really going somewhere. They were acquired not long after I left. But I was miserable, and I realized it's because my quarterly projects were all platform ops. It was like lead scoring, lead lifecycle, all integrations, all that kind of stuff. But my boss kept pulling me into campaign ops, and like, I hate doing campaign ops. Like it's really like I've run more webinars than I like to think about. Like I've sent a ton of emails. I don't want to do that anymore. I like to help people scale that. I love like coming up with the program templates and figuring out like what the campaign member status is and all that stuff and helping people do things faster and better, but I don't want to do it. So it really helped me. And, plenty of interviews, we'd start talking and afterwards I'd be like, yeah, actually like you're looking for something this is mostly campaign ops. This is not what I want to do. I don't think we should continue further. So I think it was good for me, and the companies. So that's, that like really helps. And I think also like, even if you're happy in your job, or you're not looking for a new job, it can help you just understand like, what do I want to keep doing? What do I want to do more of? What do I want to do less of? And, what do I want to learn? So it really helps, guide those conversations. And,
I think those are all really good call outs. Just like having a framework to operate within, a couple things. Like one of them is, to your point about job descriptions, I think as a community, call out to the wild again, repeatedly, over and over and over again. Like it is our job as a community to try to help establish some of those foundational boundaries. And so you will see from us in the coming weeks, like a proposed sort of set of job descriptions and basics.
That's amazing.
And we will absolutely like want the community's feedback. I would expect. I'm positive that there will be some that don't agree, but if the majority are like, no, that makes sense, then that's a win, and that's what we're looking for. We need to set a baseline. So call out to the wild, keep your eyes out for that. Like we need that, and then using this like the pillar concept, which I've been aware of for a while now. I think is tremendous. Like I think it's a really good thought leadership piece. I think it helps you frame up your career trajectory and sort of the inner working of like what you do on a day in, day out basis to try to figure out where do you want to spend more time? Where do you want to spend maybe a little less time? And then how do you have that conversation with your leadership on, hey, like, look, I'm not making this up. Like largely, for those that are aware of this idea of the 4 pillars, here's sort of the way to think about it. And so people need that, right? Leaders need that to anchor onto. And I think that's really important. My question for you, though, is whether or not you think there's a hierarchy to these pillars, because I see a ton of interlinking between them. Yeah. And I can make all kinds of arguments for that, but I would just be curious if you see there's any hierarchy there.
I think in terms of like maturity, there's definitely, as your team is growing, like these kinds of things ebb and flow. So if you're, like I said, a small team, a young company, you don't have a lot of money, you're not doing DevMops. Like that's fine. Like
totally.
I've been at companies where we didn't have DevMops. That's totally fine. Maybe you're paying for custom email templates and landing page templates. I would argue that is a really good use of your time and money. But yeah, that's fine. And like, if again, young, smaller company, newer, like marketing intelligence probably doesn't have to be that sophisticated. You're probably not maybe using, I don't even want to say the A word, attribution, because that's a whole other topic, but
attribution, what?
It might be, but you have to have platform ops solid in order to do campaign ops. Like campaign ops is what everybody sees, but if your integrations are messed up, if your users and roles are a mess and you have everybody's an admin, people at home can't see me, but I just got like a real angry look on my face.
She's talking to you.
Yeah.
She's talking to me. She's looking right at me.
If things aren't configured properly, earlier we were talking about events. If your event platform is not properly integrated with your marketing automation platform, you can send out all the event emails you want. If you can't get registrants to sync into your event platform, that's a problem, And so that kind of stuff is so foundational. If you don't have a clear lead lifecycle, if you don't, I feel like S word scoring also kind of like a touchy topic. Like spoiler alert, I hate lead scoring, but if you don't have some agreed upon framework for that and like consistency in that, actually forget agreed upon, because nobody ever agrees on lead scoring. They will say they agree and then you launch it and then they complain.
They begrudgingly agree. They agree to disagree.
We just got rid of lead scoring.
I want to step back to a comment you made earlier about the maturity piece. And I'm curious what you think about, as like a marketing ops team matures, do you think that's like siloed within the team, or do you think part of that is also tied to the maturity of the organization when it comes to
I think it's both.
Like how they accept it, right? Because I feel like I'm kind of in, like I've had that, like not currently, but I've had that in past iterations of this life where, the team is more mature than what the business is willing to accept, and we can do more, but then it's like, it becomes like a teacher student type of situation. Right. Yeah. So it's like, it's very rare that it's like exactly even. There's always going to be some kind of discrepancy, whether like the ops team is like, you're hiring to catch up to meet the needs of the business, or you're like, trying to educate them up to a level. Does that make sense? I'm kind of
absolutely
trying to figure out
I think you're right. And I think there's also, you can have a situation where marketing leadership wants more maturity. Like maybe you get like a new CMO and they have all these like needs for analytics, but you're just not quite there yet. Maybe the data's not there. Maybe you don't have the team in place. Maybe there's other priorities. So yes, there certainly can be tension between the org, and the team. But I think marketing ops hopefully can lead, and try to bring everybody with them and educate people, right? I think I think everybody on the marketing team has seen the 4 pillars. Everybody on my RevOps team has seen it. I've given my charter presentation, and I think, as much education as you can do. But not always in lockstep. You're right, Naomi.
Hey everyone, Mike Rizzo here, CEO of MarketingOps.com and co-host of OpsCast. I've got a little secret to share with you, something that's been one of the best kept perks of our community until now. At MarketingOps.com, we've built a hiring program that's changing the game for marketing operations recruitment, and we're finally sharing it with the world. Our community is over 22,000 strong, and within that, we have over 4,400 members who are actively and passively seeking new opportunities. These are seasoned professionals with skills and experience spanning platforms like HubSpot, Pardot, Marketo, and so much more. Plus, we can help you fine-tune your outreach, targeting exactly the right candidates by region, years of experience, seniority level, or even agency experience. But here's the real cherry on top. When you hire through our program, your new team member gets a free membership or a virtual ticket to our annual conference. From day one, they're not just stepping into a new role, they're getting access to the training, networking, and support they need to hit the ground running. So if you're ready to unlock this incredible opportunity, it's time to let this secret out. Visit marketingops.com and find your next star teammate today. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep optimizing.
Yeah, to me, it does. I think I largely agree, or just I hear you, and I think it's right to think about, platform ops probably is a foundational element that needs to be established. I don't know. I feel like there's an argument to be made around this idea of like where's the bleed over between like the campaign ops into my ops, right? And that sort of feels like they almost have to happen simultaneously. And then as soon as the question, sort of like as you alluded to earlier, where you're like, hey, I shouldn't have to slice and dice the data a million different ways. That's actually like an analytics and business intelligence team. When the questions start to become more complex and they start asking nittier, grittier details, maybe that's where my ops steps in. But like campaign ops, if you don't have, we've had sessions on this in the community. If you don't have like a solid UTM strategy and a life cycle strategy and all of that stuff to track through campaign, success rates, someone eventually is going to ask you some complicated question about what's working or what we hypothesize is working. Because let's be real, like, we're not always spot on with that. And you're not going to be equipped to answer that in a MyOps environment unless you have the foundational elements of what goes into campaign operations, which I would argue is like, some analytics tracking, Google Analytics, and maybe UTM strategy, right?
And I think the other thing, Mike, is that, if assuming you're using Salesforce, making sure that your campaign member statuses are consistent. How can you, all of these attribution tools tend to go off Salesforce campaigns and like they pick which ones are, considered success and pull into the attribution model. If you don't have consistency there, like that's a huge problem. And if you, have people who aren't following your instructions and the campaign members never make it from Marketo to Salesforce, that's another problem. So I think having that
having the discipline of keeping updated on opportunities. Right?
Yeah.
I actually heard about a situation recently where the sales team wasn't closing out lost opportunities or marking those duplicates. They were deleting them. So for those listening, you should have seen the looks on people's faces.
All of our heads just like, whoa.
Yeah, like I heard for those of you with children out in the listening audience, if you haven't seen Forky Asks a Question on Disney Plus, it was very much the like, what? No response to what Michael just said.
Yeah,
oh wow,
I'm speechless. Really?
No, I know. When I heard that, I was like, what? Wait, what? So yeah, but I've said for a long time, like I actually think that in terms of long-term importance, I'm starting to believe that MyOps or that reporting analytics should become more and more important, right? Because we've had no issue generating data. It's like, what are we doing with it? It's hard, but it requires to really be able to use it for decision making or getting better or automating more. The discipline of people doing setup or managing, campaigns or managing opportunities all the way through, right? That there's a lot of discipline that's required to make that work the best. And I've yet to be at a place where they've done that all the way through consistently.
Yeah, and so I'm going to express. You can hear me already expressing it. I'm a little frustrated by sort of the MyOps as a category, because like I see it rapidly branching off into a department of business intelligence and data analytics that isn't like within the sort of like if there was a marketing ops team. I think there's a very strong dotted line and they're doing MyOps related things, but they are not called a marketing operations professional. That would be my argument.
I mean, I think it depends. So in like my current setup, I have, a direct report, Geraldine, who part of her job is analytics. She owns our attribution tool setup. And she has done a ton of like campaign, kind of QBR, end of year campaign reporting, what's working, what's not working. She works really closely with the BI team. She has a BI analyst she partners with who's phenomenal. They have a really great working relationship. So I'll give an example of where I think like marketing ops comes into play. So we were having this tension between what our campaign member statuses are and our campaign types, trying to show versus like the channel of like the effort. So it, we were showing that our demo request form was a big driver. Fortunately, that should be, especially for your like
That's
lower,
a good thing.
Lower tier market segments. But marketing leadership was like, well, that doesn't tell me anything. I need to know where those demos are coming from. Are they organic? Are they coming from paid channels? What paid channels are they coming from? But we didn't want to redo our Salesforce campaign and Marketo program setup and campaign member statuses, because that would completely change our campaign ops and how that works. So she came up with a way to pair campaign member statuses and campaign types and turn them into, I think we're calling them channels. And that's being built in our BI tool so that we can look and see which channels are driving things. So I think that's where like that partnership really comes, that marketing ops comes with like the understanding and, BI is able to execute, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. And I think that there's elements of marketing reporting and some marketing intelligence stuff that comes out of maybe the tools that you manage. But as you start looking holistically to illustrate the point, I think that you made further, as you get to this idea of like, well, yeah, great, the demo requests are generating the best pipeline for us, but like, how are they getting to the demo requests? I don't think that is a marketing ops person's job to try to figure out. That is a business intelligence challenge where you can supply some resources, right? Some data inputs, and then they can slice and dice and try to figure out how to make that data actually make sense. Part of the reason I'm bringing all this up is that like there's a job posted in the community just this week around looking for a data analytics professional. And I was like, look, like, yeah, you might find someone who comes out of marketing ops who wants to really move more into data and analytics. But that isn't specifically a marketing ops job, right? There's elements of the MyOps thing, but really as you get further into data and analytics, I don't think that that's specifically a marketing ops job.
I saw that look on your face, Michael.
I know. It's like
this is Michael's the engineering background guy.
No, so I actually think I see where you're coming from. Like at the same time, my experience has been that people who are really like sort of general, I'll call it general purpose. I hate to say it, but BI analytics kind of real strong. They like the nuances and complexities and messiness of B2B marketing and sales data really is it's not as clean as like doing financial data or even just pure sales data, right? I mean, I think so that's why I struggle with like, yeah, I think if you really need to have people who are experts in analytics concepts, like if you're doing predictive scoring or you're doing churn models or whatever it is, it's sort of complex from a general standpoint, but they don't understand the way that the data is created and flows and the dependencies on people and timing and all that kind of stuff that goes with marketing. I think it's you run the risk of it not being very useful, or it's going to tell a story that it really shouldn't because it's missing a piece of understanding of how the process flows.
I am nodding my head in agreement with you, and we're saying the same thing. I'm saying that the marketing ops person needs to advise where that data comes from and what it means, but that other person who's an expert at taking those other inputs from other departments like sales ops or even your IT team and your product team, and you're marrying those concepts together, client success for that matter. Is this RevOps? Are we talking about RevOps here? It sort of sounds like RevOps.
Yeah. I mean,
but anyway, we don't have to keep going down the rabbit hole.
I think it's all about,
there is a split at some point.
Yeah. And I think it's all about like building a team charter and understanding and thinking critically about what your team needs at this point and where you're going in the future. And that's really the other piece that I think that the 4 pillars is really helpful for as a marketing ops leader or a RevOps leader. Really like understanding, what do you need now? What can you wait on? What can you outsource? Especially, I think we've all seen these job descriptions that is like everything in the kitchen sink they want in a manager level or a specialist level.
No. No, it's no longer manager level. It's director titles that are individual contributors.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a truth.
Well,
That's a thing too.
So there's a lot of messiness there. It seems like I've hit a nerve. I'm going to try to move slowly away from that nerve. But, I think like really using this to be super clear about what you want. And then, I've been in a situation where I posted a job description and it actually turned out that like that person did not exist. So then I went back and I sort of looked at the different pieces of the job, and the job, one of the things was dev mops, actually just really heavy dev. And we were like, you know what, we can use an agency to outsource this. And we cut that part of the job, restructured the job description, and we found Jeanette on my team, who's phenomenal. And it turns out is exactly what we need. So I think, using the 4 pillars to structure and to like, as you're doing the hiring process, to adjust if necessary. And I think the other thing that's really helpful for the 4 pillars is like having conversations with your team about what they want to do and where they want to go in their careers. Look, nobody's going to love 100% of their job duties, right? Like we all have to do things we don't want to do sometimes. But if somebody's stuck spending 80% of their time doing stuff they hate, they're going to leave you.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a much bigger problem. So I think it really helps, drive those conversations with your team about their growth.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because when Mike asked the question about is there a hierarchy with those pillars, which implies that they're not all pillars, I think, in that case, right? But anyway.
Yeah, totally.
but if there is a hierarchy, or even if there's not a hierarchy, I thought you were going to go towards, so you went towards organizational needs, right? What do we need on the team? What do we need to be able to support first versus later? I was thinking, could this also apply to individuals who say, I'm currently in platform ops, or I'm in probably like more likely in campaign, probably starting campaign ops, and I want to be more in platform ops, or I want to more do like. Now you have a framework also to talk about how, like, where can you go from a development standpoint and grow and learn.
Totally, and whether they're. Yeah.
No, I'm just curious. Like, do you use that with your teams?
Yep.
I'm curious if you use something like that as well as you're working through with your teams.
I would say no, not really. It's something that I would like to look more into, though. No, I would say that right now we don't.
Got it.
Yeah, I think it's really important. It's a great way to have those conversations and have the structure, of what they're doing and what they want to grow into. And you're right. I think a lot of people move from campaign ops to platform ops, or you may have somebody who's in platform ops and they're really heavy in one platform. Maybe they're, into Marketo, but they want to learn Salesforce. Great. Let's get you into Trailhead. Let's, get you learning Salesforce. Or maybe they're, want to do more integrations or whatever. But I think, or if they want to do dev, more power to them. We need more people who can do dev.
I'm thinking a bit more about that question. Though. And I think part of the reason we don't necessarily have like, how do you migrate between those two is because the way that my team is structured, it is like they already all are subject matter experts in their own sense, right? So I have it structured in the sense where we all are, everybody can execute a campaign end to end, right, as a baseline. But then everybody is subject matter experts in the sense that there's a web developer, there's an email developer, there is a data operations person, there is a designer. So they all have their own areas of expertise, but they kind of touch on both. They're like hybrid campaign / platform ops, if that makes sense, in their area of expertise. And then we kind of there is crossover. So for example, if, our web developer is really interested in something on the data piece, right? And it's not just like a standard audience, like all customers in this region. It's maybe, customers who have open opportunities above this stage who, also have this product. And it's like, various different things that they may be interested in that they will then do. And I love seeing this on my team, right? Where they will partner up and teach each other things, right? And vice versa. So it's less of a, how do I get from campaign to platform ops to DevOps or vice versa? It's kind of, I think it's just the nature of how I structured my team that they all just want to learn everything. And it might just be very specific to my org.
I think that's great though, Naomi, because it sounds like you kind of have structured things within the different pillars, but you have people with a growth mindset. And that's, you cannot teach a growth mindset. So, having people that want to learn different things, I think is wonderful.
So earlier you talked about being able to like outsource the development piece to to an agency, I think is what you specifically brought up. And so, I think that's a great example of when it's difficult to find a hire. Maybe you just go find the agency that can support you. But like, what would you say are the appropriate times to hire an agency, and then any tips for hiring agencies in general?
Yeah, I've had a lot of success hiring agencies. I've also had some challenges, so I can talk about both. But I think there are some times when I would absolutely say hire an agency. One is if you're doing an implementation or migration. I have the humility to know that, like I said, been Marketo certified since 2016. I'm a 4-time Marketo Champion. I do not want to do your implementation. Agencies have these huge like workbooks. If you're talking about Marketo, they have program templates that they can literally import. You are buying their IP, and the money that you're spending to get your platform implemented properly is going to pay out dividends. I think also the dev work of like I said, email and landing page templates. Usually these platforms come with like starter templates, but some of these companies, the templates that they've built just make things so much easier and so much smoother and really can accelerate your email execution and just make your emails look so much better. So those are two things that I would say like definitely pay an agency for. We have a lot of do a lot. I think our agency has like 3 contracts going on at the same time. And we have an ongoing services contract for like anything and everything, whether we're adjusting our lead lifecycle, whether we're have a new privacy and compliance documentation that we need to implement in the stack. A lot of it is like, what work can I get off my team's plate that's busy work that doesn't really drive them forward? Like adding new LinkedIn lead gen, doing some data cleanup sometimes, adding new drift bots to Marketo, like that is not a good use of my team's time. They're in meetings, they're doing like big foundational work, like get that off their plates. So, and also just like having that ongoing services contract means when there's a question, there's only 2 Marketo experts on my team, right? But agencies have dozens. So you talk to your consultant, they don't know, they're going to talk to their team. That's golden. And then also like that dev stuff, you have like a small dev project or a bigger dev project, you can just pay for those hours instead of trying to have somebody in house. And then other things. So I have not done a ton of this, but some people use agencies for their campaign execution. I think that can work really well. We started using agency for email execution for our conference because we just send so many conference emails, and poor Matt, who runs our email channel, just can't keep up with the volume of emails. He's project managed them, he's running them, he's designing them, he's coordinating with the copywriter and the designer, but agency actually does the hands-on keyboard work. And then also for Activate, we have them doing all the Marketo program, because there's no program template for that. That is a gnarly Marketo program that seems to be changing all the time, and doing all the integrations and all that stuff, which frees me up to have the strategic conversations, to be in the meetings and understanding and project managing, but I don't have to actually do the work.
Yeah.
Does that kind of jive with what you all have used agencies for?
I mean, what you described, that sort of bucket of hours like model, right? I've used that, and then also had very project specific stuff. And for me, the key was having at least a small core set of the same people who are familiar with our business. And if they were going to change it, like those people need to have new experience too, right? If they were changing them out, right, having a very sort of well thought through plan for sort of one person coming in, another person leaving, and the overlap there. And that has always worked well. And I've used a little bit of one for like campaign ops, but mostly it's been kind of the same thing, right? It's not, for things that they're important, they need to be done and taken care of, but not sort of moving towards strategic stuff, which is what I want my team to be working on.
We've used agencies for project basis. We haven't used them as a retainer for execution or anything like that. But we've definitely done it on a project basis where there's maybe expertise that the team doesn't have or something more complicated, and that's worked well for us. But I'm never going to say no to extra hands, but that just so far seems to be how we've engaged with our agency.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Like, I'm not going to say no for extra help because I'm sure there's always a way to creatively use the extra hands. But I think a lot of this, interestingly, like definitely comes from the more advanced, that's the wrong way to describe it. The more challenging systems that can be harder to implement. So I think Marketo falls into that bucket for sure. And by challenging, it just means you need to think through it, right? And at least that's how I'm thinking about it. And even in the Eloqua space, right? Those are big sort of enterprise platforms that can service pretty large organizations. I haven't personally, from my experience, having used HubSpot, it is very rare that I ever had to reach out to an agency to really help with much of anything in HubSpot. Now that they're moving in a direction of more RevOps centric stuff, though, I'm seeing it more and more and more that you need someone that really understands the ins and outs of the connectivity between all the objects and the relationships within HubSpot to then go tap into an agency for their experience. But it's interesting to have watched the evolution of that happen from a tool that was very marketeer friendly to now something that is very that is more robust and ready for some scale, and now needs maybe a little bit more of that technical expertise. And so I'm hearing what all of you are saying, and I'm like, gosh, yeah, that's super interesting through the lens of Marketo. I have some experience in Marketo now, but up till now, I haven't seen much of a need within just the last, let's call it 2 years for leveraging agency help on the HubSpot side of things. And now I'm like, okay, I understand why there's a whole category of RevOps agencies for HubSpot these days.
Totally. And one thing I would tell people is I don't really know a ton about corporate finances. I don't really quite understand how they decide what budget goes to what, but there always seems to be budget for agency when there's not budget for headcount. So I would encourage people, if you're feeling like you're struggling, you don't have budget to hire a full-time person, see if there's agency budget, because in my experience, they can usually shuffle things around and give you a chunk of money that you can use, whether it's for a big project or just to offload some work on your team or to get some expertise on things, no matter what your platform is. We use agencies and I can think of at least 3 of our platforms. We have a great business systems team. We also have, Salesforce dev team. So our sales outsourced Salesforce dev. So there's there's definitely a lot of opportunities. But the thing to remember about hiring an agency is you do have to be conscientious when you hire them, and you have to manage them.
Yes. It's not like just you're washing your hands of it and there's nothing else you do.
Yeah. You want to find somebody. So like you were saying, Mike, there didn't used to be as many agencies that specialize in HubSpot. You want somebody who specializes in your platform, and you want them to have a lot of people specializing in your platform. Because like I said, your consultant is probably very smart, but they're only one person. But if they have a team, they have their own internal Slack where they can ask people. That is golden.
Yeah.
So, I think,
yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So,
and I think, sorry, just the call out to ask for agency headcount help is a good one. And I think this episode and your blog post talking about the 4 pillars is good fodder for making that argument, right? Because there's a good chance you might get pushback from your leadership that says, well, isn't this part of your job? Right. And then you go back to well, let me show you the 4 pillars.
Yep.
And this one I don't do. And so now give me the budget for the agency. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also, I just published an article about top 10 tips for finding an agency that works for your team. And I think that's really the thing is that agency that works for you. You want to look for an agency that's worked with companies like yours, and you want references for companies like yours. I had an experience where My boss hired a marketing ops agency that she'd worked with before, and we had a really bad experience with them. Mm-hmm. And she thinks that part of the problem was when she used them at a huge, giant, global corporation, and we were like a much smaller SaaS, pre-IPO SaaS company. So make sure they're used to working with companies like yours, and make sure that like they communicate in the way that works for you. So if you use Slack, oh my God, I think Slack Connect is like so genius. So I can DM or get or pull my consultants into a channel, and it's just like they're part of my team, because I would like email chains to die. And you want to like talk to them about how communicative are they, how responsive are they, how quickly can you schedule meetings. I had trouble with an agency where the principal consultant, it would take like 2 weeks to get a meeting with him. And there was so much back and forth because he didn't have like a Calendly or, a scheduling tool like that. Whereas like my consultant that I have now, I can look at her Calendly and I can see when she's available, and she usually has openings the next day. So, I think that's really important.
I think those are all great points. So speaking of your blog and recent posts and everything, so this has been super interesting conversation. I think we could go on for a while, but we are going to have to cut it off. Folks want to connect with you or keep up with your blog, like what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, marketingopsadvice.com is the best place to go for resources. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. It's just linkedin.com/in/Amy Goldfine. All one word. You can follow me there. You can also like reach out on the MoPros. I'm pretty active there. Would love to, have some conversations going there as well.
Awesome. Well, again, Amy, thank you so much. Mike, Naomi, thank you for being here. Thanks to all of our listeners for being a part of this. Continue to support us, rate us, give us feedback. If you want to be a guest or you know somebody who'd be a good guest, let us know that. And with that, it's a wrap. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.